Okay, everyone. So this is going to be just some basic techniques for oil pastels. So this is the set here that I'm using. They look like this, and they're kind of like crayons, just a lot softer. And so a lot of the techniques that I'm using, you can kind of use with crayons, maybe with the exception of some of them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you different blending. I'm going to show you how to blend using a tissue, using saran wrap or some kind of plastic that you can wrap around your finger. A Q-tip kind of gives you some fun textures. And then I'm going to show you a few techniques in drawing, because you don't have to. The great thing about oil pastels, it could be used kind of like an oil paint where you're drawing, you're using just dots, you're using what's called scrumbling, which is like a scribble. And then we have sgraffito, which is this like scratching technique. And then I like to just play around with my materials, and I have some rubbing alcohol here, which I'm going to show you where you can like go back and remove certain things and bring back some white areas possibly. For the blending, another technique you can use is blending with your finger. I personally don't like that one. I don't like the way it feels on my fingers, which is why I do the plastic wrap. So that's one you might want to try on your own. And the general rule for blending is you usually start with your darker color, and you press really hard, and you get lighter. And that's my cat, if you can hear her meowing in the background. And I'm going to do a yellow. And then you start with your darker color, and then you press, the pressure of your color goes from dark to light. And then on the other side where you want the light to be at, you're going to press hard. And as you're overlapping, you start to lighten up your pressure so that it blends together. Okay. And I'm going to do the same two colors here. You can even, if you don't want an even blend or you don't want that blend, you can just do two colors side by side. And I'll show you with the color pencil or the plastic wrap what to do here. I don't usually like to blend that way. I just kind of like to go back and forth in the middle here, because your lighter color will pick up some of the color and bring it back over. Your pastel stick does get dirty when you do that, so before you use the color again, I take a tissue and wipe the other color off so that you don't have, like, now I have like this green on here because all the blue's on here, so I'd wipe that off before. So for the tissue, you're just going to take paper towel, and it works if it's kind of bundled up so it's a little bit stiff, and then you can just kind of blend things together. Be careful with this, because if you press too hard, what's going to happen is it starts to lift up your pastels. Okay. On this one, I like to just take some plastic wrap. I might fold it in half so I have double the plastic, and I wrap it around my finger. And I can push the blue into the yellow. I can push the yellow back into the blue. And this one kind of gives you a little bit more texture than the tissue. It's a little bit more, it's not removing very much the color, so it's the color still vibrant, where this one, the tissue is removing some of it. And the Q-tip I kind of liked because I can kind of draw with it. I am lifting up parts of it, like the tissue, but I can kind of get some line work in here. I can be a little bit more creative. I can kind of doodle or scribble. So if I want to do some extend past my area, I can doodle and scribble with the the Q-tip. So that's kind of a nice thing to do. So this is for like smoother areas. If you want something more textured, more painterly, a lot of artists like to use stippling, which is just dots. And so you'd start off in this one, you might start off with some of your lighter colors. And you're just adding your dots. And the closer together and the more dots you add. So I'm going to go back and I'm adding more yellow. It's just going to give it more of a painterly kind of feel. Go back, add some red into here. And then so it's just going to have more of like a texture. For scrumbling, it's just scribbling. So I'm just going to scribble here. And it's just a buildup of scribbles. I like oil pastels because you can go back and forth with your light and dark and kind of blend. You can put down some light colors, put down some dark, and then go back with your light colors to kind of smooth or blend things out and to remove some of the intensity of like the darker colors if you want to. So that's kind of a nice thing. The other thing I love about oil pastels is that you can take one color, so you're going to press hard, and you can do this with colored pencils as well. So if you don't have oil pastels and you want to do something a little different, you can do that again. You can do this with colored pencils. So I'm not colored pencils, crayons. Ooh, tired already, huh? So you can do this with crayons as well. So you're going to put down one color, and then usually it's a lighter color, and then you can take a darker color and press hard on top. And you want to press hard and make sure that's solid, and then you can take a tool, like a pen cap. Sometimes I use like my scissors, and you want to be very careful with this. So I'm going to just zoom in a little bit here so you can see this. And you can scratch away some of your designs. Let's see, I'm trying to find the right spot here. So you can remove your top layer and draw into it and reveal the lighter color underneath, which is a really nice technique to play with. And our last technique, which I just kind of discovered in playing with it. So let's get some colors up here. And oil pastels, they're meant to press hard. You don't want to like use it like a color pencil or a crayon where you're just light. You want really nice, bold, intense color when you're using this. So you want to press down. So I'm going to take some of my rubbing alcohol. I'm going to take a Q-tip and dip that in there, and I can go in and use the Q-tip and the alcohol to kind of go in and remove areas. Now, if you are using a thin paper, be careful because the paper is going to get soaked and get wet. So if you scrub too much, what's going to happen is you'll start to rip your paper. But what's happening is the alcohol is kind of eating through the wax, and it's bringing you back down to just the paper. So if you're going to do something back on top of this later, then I would let it dry before you can, and I just want to make sure you can see that. So I removed the pastel, and you can see how the alcohol is still wet. The alcohol will dry fairly quickly, but it removes it a little bit, so you can go back to white essentially. It's not a perfect white, but it does remove some of the wax and gives you an opportunity to go back and like draw more details. And then that again is the sgraffito, just so you can get a better look at that. The stippling. This is scrumbling, so just scribbles. And then the different blending, so blending with the tissue, blending with plastic wrap, and then blending with a Q-tip. And I'll take a photo of this so you can see it a little bit clearer.